The vast expanse of Vortis 7 stretched before Leo Santos like a desolate wasteland, its gray, rocky terrain extending to the horizon beneath a murky, red atmosphere. The planet was infamous throughout the galaxy for its crushing gravitational pull, twice that of Earth standard. But that wasn't what made Leo's muscles strain against invisible chains. It was the modified gravity generators of the Consortium's military training facility that truly tested the limits of human endurance. Leo took another labored breath, his lungs fighting against the pressure that seemed determined to collapse his chest. 3 days into his captivity, and already he'd witnessed 2 fellow prisoners succumb to the relentless force. Their bodies had simply given out. Bones cracking under pressure they were never designed to withstand. The Consortium guards had dragged them away without ceremony, their faces impassive behind reflective visors. "Subject 37, step forward," announced the metallic voice through the facility's speakers. Leo moved with deliberate care, each step requiring concentrated effort. The gravity challenge arena loomed before him, a circular chamber 20 meters across with walls of reinforced polycarbon. At its center stood Captain Vrax, the facility commander, his tall, rigid posture betraying his military background, despite the civilian research uniform he wore. "Leo Santos," Vrax said, consulting a datapad. "Former Earth mercenary, specialized in zero-G combat and high-risk extractions." His lips curled into what might have been a smile on a human face. "Quite the resume. Let's see how you perform in the opposite conditions." Leo kept his expression neutral, though his heart raced. He'd heard whispers about Vrax's experiments, how the captain pushed subjects beyond all reasonable limits in his quest to develop the perfect gravity-resistant soldier. Some said it wasn't research at all, but a weapon development program disguised as military training. "The standard protocol is simple," Vrax continued. "You will endure incremental gravity increases until you reach your breaking point. Most subjects surrender at 2.5 G. He paused, eyeing Leo with clinical interest. "Though I'm told your kind is particularly adaptable." "My kind?" Leo asked, his voice tight from the effort of speaking. "Humans." Vrax's tone held a hint of disdain. "Always so confident in your supremacy, despite your fragile biology." Leo said nothing. He'd learned during his years as a mercenary that sometimes silence was the most effective response to provocation. "Begin the test," Vrax ordered, stepping back to a control panel embedded in the wall. Leo felt the shift immediately. The already punishing gravity of Vortis 7, amplified by the facility's base settings to 2G, suddenly intensified. His knees buckled slightly before he forced them straight. At 2.2 G, sweat began to bead on his forehead. At 2.5 G, his vision darkened at the edges. Around the chamber's perimeter, other prisoners watched with a mixture of dread and fascination. Among them, Leo spotted Lyra, a psychological engineer who'd been captured during a raid on a civilian research vessel. Her eyes met his briefly, and he detected something beyond the fear that clouded most prisoners' expressions. Calculation. "Interesting," Vrax noted at 2.7 G. "Most subjects are on their knees by now." Leo didn't respond. He was drawing on techniques he'd learned during his time on the Ceres asteroid mining station. Gravitational displacement meditation, the miners called it. The practice didn't actually reduce gravity's effects on the body, but it allowed the mind to redistribute the perceived pressure, making it more bearable. At 3G, pain shot through Leo's spine. His vision blurred, and he could feel his internal organs straining against the crushing force. 2 guards watched impassively, hands resting on stun batons. "That's enough," Vrax said, satisfaction evident in his voice. "You've reached triple Earth gravity, Santos. Most impressive. But this is where it ends for humans. We've had unfortunate incidents when pushing beyond this point." Leo's muscles screamed for relief, but something in Vrax's tone, that smug certainty of human limitation, ignited a defiance in him that overrode his survival instinct. "Triple it," he gasped. The chamber fell silent. Even the ever-present hum of the gravity generators seemed to pause. "What did you say?" Vrax's expression shifted from satisfaction to confusion. Leo raised his head, meeting the captain's gaze directly. "I said triple it. Not triple Earth standard. Triple what you have now." Murmurs erupted from the observing prisoners. Vrax stared at Leo, then let out a short, harsh laugh. "You're either brave or suicidal. Santos. Perhaps both." He turned to the control panel, then hesitated. "You understand what you're asking? 9 times Earth gravity would liquefy your organs. No human has survived beyond 5G for more than a few minutes." Leo managed a strained smile. "Afraid your equipment can't handle it, Captain." It was a calculated provocation, and it worked. Vrax's face hardened. "Prepare medical evacuation protocols," he ordered one of the guards. Then, to Leo, "Your bravado is noted, Santos, but I won't be responsible for turning you into a puddle of flesh and broken bones." Instead of increasing the gravity further, Vrax shut down the amplifier. Leo felt the sudden relief as the crushing pressure eased back to Vortis 7's natural 2G. Still punishing, but manageable after what he'd just endured. "Take him back to the holding cell," Vrax ordered. "We'll continue tomorrow." As Leo was led away, he caught the captain studying him with newfound interest. In the cramped cell block, Leo collapsed onto his thin mattress, every muscle in his body trembling with fatigue. He closed his eyes, focusing on his breathing to manage the pain. "That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen," came a whisper from the adjacent cell. Leo turned his head to see Lyra watching him through the narrow gap between their cells. Her dark eyes were intelligent, assessing. "Sometimes there's not much difference," he replied quietly. "You challenged him. Nobody challenges Vrax." She leaned closer to the gap. "But you knew exactly what you were doing, didn't you?" Leo gave a slight nod. "He expects us to break. When we don't, it disrupts his entire worldview. There's more to your gravity resistance than just mental techniques," Lyra observed. "I saw how you positioned your body, redistributed your weight. That's not standard training." "Asteroid miners," Leo explained. "Spent 2 years with them after the Galactic War. They've developed ways to function in variable gravity fields. Saved my life more than once." Lyra glanced down the corridor to ensure no guards were listening. "There's a technician here, Tash, part cyborg, specialized in gravitational engineering. Vrax brought him in to maintain the equipment, but I think he has his own agenda. He might be able to help us." "Help us what?" Leo asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Escape," Lyra whispered, "and expose what's really happening here. These aren't just training exercises or prisoner tests. Vrax is developing a biological weapon using gravity manipulation. They're studying how different species break under extreme pressure to create targeted gravitational attacks." Leo absorbed this information, remembering the clinical way Vrax had observed his reactions. "How do we contact this technician?" "He services the cell block environmental systems tomorrow." "I'll signal him." Lyra hesitated. "Why did you really tell Vrax to triple the gravity? You must have known it would kill you." Leo's lips curved into a small smile. "I needed to see his reaction. Now I know 2 things. He's under pressure to produce results without killing test subjects, and he's genuinely curious about human limitations." He met Lyra's gaze. "Both are weaknesses we can exploit." The next day, Leo was brought back to the testing chamber. This time, several officers had joined Vrax behind a reinforced observation window. Leo recognized the insignia of the consortium's military science division, the real power behind the facility's operations. "Santos." Vrax greeted him with exaggerated cordiality. "My colleagues were quite impressed with your performance yesterday. We've adjusted today's protocol to explore your apparent tolerance." Leo noticed new monitoring equipment had been installed around the chamber. Neural scanners and tissue density analyzers that would record every physiological response to the increased gravity. "Begin at 2.5 G, Vrax ordered. The pressure descended immediately, and Leo felt his body protesting the sudden stress. He focused on his breathing, adjusting his stance subtly to distribute the force more evenly across his frame. As the gravity increased incrementally, Leo became aware of a slight vibration in the floor plates beneath him, almost imperceptible, but distinct from the normal hum of the generators. He kept his expression neutral, but his mind raced with possibilities. At 3.2 G, Leo's vision began to tunnel, dark spots dancing at the edges. He swayed slightly, but remained standing. "Remarkable," one of the observing officers commented. "Most species would be completely immobilized at this level." "Increase to 3.5 G, Vrax commanded. The crushing weight intensified. Leo felt something shift painfully in his lower back, but he suppressed the grimace that threatened to betray his discomfort. Instead, he focused on a point just beyond the observation window, his gaze steady. The floor vibration changed frequency, becoming slightly more pronounced. Only someone hyper-aware of their surroundings would notice, and Leo had spent years training himself to detect the smallest environmental changes. Someone was manipulating the gravity field, creating subtle interference patterns in the generator output. "Tash," he realized. "The technician must be accessing the system during the test." "His vital signs are fluctuating but stabilizing," reported a technician. "Bone density is holding. Musculature shows significant stress but no tearing yet." "He's adapting in real time," Vrax observed, fascination evident in his voice. "Increase to 3.8 G. The pressure became nearly unbearable. Leo's legs trembled visibly now, and breathing required conscious effort with each shallow inhalation. Blood thundered in his ears. But beneath the pain, he felt something else, a slight ripple in the gravity field around him, almost like a pocket of reduced pressure that moved with him as he shifted his weight. The difference was minimal, perhaps reducing the effective gravity by 0.2 G at most. But it was enough to keep him conscious and standing. Someone was helping him, creating a localized gravitational anomaly that followed his movements. "His endurance exceeds all previous records," Vrax announced to his colleagues. "I propose we push to 4G to establish a new baseline for human tolerance." Through the haze of pain, Leo saw concern flash across the faces of some officers. One stepped forward to speak quietly to Vrax, who responded with visible irritation. "The subject volunteered for extreme testing yesterday," Vrax insisted, "and the data we're gathering is unprecedented." "Proceed to 4G, authorized the senior officer after a moment's consideration. "But prepare emergency medical intervention." As the gravity increased again, Leo felt his consciousness beginning to slip away. The protective field around him fluctuated, struggling to compensate for the extreme forces. His knees buckled, and he dropped to a kneeling position, hands braced against the floor. Blood began to trickle from his nose, spattering on the polished surface beneath him. The metallic taste filled his mouth as capillaries in his lungs began to rupture under the pressure. "That's enough," ordered the senior officer. "Shut it down before we lose him." "Wait," Vrax protested. "He's still conscious. The data—" "I said shut it down, Captain." The gravity abruptly returned to Vortis 7's natural 2G. Leo collapsed fully to the floor, gulping air into his oxygen-starved lungs. Medical personnel rushed into the chamber, administering stabilizing compounds and scanning for internal injuries. As they loaded him onto a hovering medical transport, Leo caught sight of someone working at a maintenance panel near the chamber entrance, a lean figure with mechanical augmentations visible along one arm and the side of his face. The technician's eyes met Leo's briefly, and he gave an almost imperceptible nod. "Tash, it had to be." Leo was returned not to the common cell block, but to the medical wing. His injuries were significant: microfractures in his femurs and pelvis, pulmonary hemorrhaging, and dangerous pressure on his spinal column, but not life-threatening with proper treatment. The consortium wanted him alive, at least for now. He drifted in and out of consciousness as regenerative compounds worked to repair the damage. During one lucid period, he became aware of a presence beside his bed, expecting to see a medical droid. He was surprised to find Lyra, dressed in the gray uniform of facility support staff. "Don't speak," she whispered, pretending to check the monitoring equipment. "I've been assigned a psychological evaluation of test subjects. Tash arranged it." Leo gave a small nod to show he understood. "You felt it, didn't you? The gravitational buffer." Lyra adjusted something on his medical readout. "Tash has been developing the technology in secret. Microscale gravity manipulation, independent of the main generators." Leo's eyes asked the question his voice couldn't. "We have a plan," Lyra confirmed. "But we need you to volunteer for the final test, the Death Ring. It's where Vrax demonstrates the military applications of his research to consortium officials." Leo closed his eyes briefly. The Death Ring. He'd heard prisoners speak of it in hushed, terrified tones. Few returned from that demonstration. "You'll be recovered enough in 2 days," Lyra continued. "Vrax is already pushing to use you as the demonstration subject. Your unusual resilience has made you the perfect specimen in his eyes." She pressed something small and cold into his palm, a metallic disc, no larger than a fingernail. "Subdermal gravity resonator," she explained. "Tash adapted it from mining technology. It won't protect you completely, but it might keep you alive long enough." Before Leo could respond, the door to the medical bay slid open. Lyra smoothly transitioned to making notes on her datapad as a guard entered. "How's our star subject?" the guard asked, sounding almost impressed. "Recovering well," Lyra replied professionally. "Remarkable resilience. He should be ready for further testing within 48 hours. Captain Vrax will be pleased. He's been talking about this one to everyone who'll listen." The guard glanced at Leo with something like respect. "Never seen anyone stay conscious at 4G before. You're either the toughest human alive or the craziest." Leo managed a weak smile. "Why not both?" The guard chuckled and left them alone again. 2 days, Lyra whispered. "Be ready." For the next 48 hours, Leo focused on recovering his strength while memorizing the medical wing's routines and security protocols. The gravity resonator remained hidden beneath a bandage on his forearm, its presence a constant reminder of what was to come. Tash visited once, ostensibly to check the environmental controls. The technician was younger than Leo had expected, with olive skin and half his face overlaid with cybernetic implants that extended down his neck and right arm. "The resonator has limitations," Tash explained quietly, while pretending to examine a ventilation panel. "It creates a counterforce to the ambient gravity, but the effect diminishes exponentially with increased pressure. At 4G, it provided maybe 10% reduction. Beyond that," he shook his head. "How high can the Death Ring go?" Leo asked. "Theoretically, 12G, but they've never pushed it past 6G with living subjects." Tash's organic eye met Leo's. "What Vrax doesn't know is that I've modified the resonator to do more than just protect you. If you activate its secondary function at peak gravitational stress, it will create a feedback loop in the generator matrix, destroying the generators and releasing every prisoner in the facility." Tash glanced toward the door. "The consortium has gone too far. These aren't military trials anymore. They're developing weapons to selectively crush entire populations while leaving infrastructure intact. Gravitational genocide." Leo considered the implications. "How do I activate this secondary function?" 3 sharp taps followed by sustained pressure. "The resonator will recognize the pattern." Tash closed the panel. "But understand what you're risking. The feedback will cause a catastrophic system failure. When the generators collapse, there will be gravitational shockwaves throughout the facility. Many won't survive. Including me, Leo concluded. Tash didn't deny it. Your chances are better than most. The resonator will try to protect you, but at that point, it's beyond my calculations. 2 days later, Leo stood at the entrance to the death ring, a massive circular chamber at the heart of the facility. Unlike the testing room, this space was designed for spectacle. Tiered seating surrounded a central platform where the gravity generators could be focused with pinpoint accuracy. Consortium officials and military officers filled the observation areas, their conversations hushed with anticipation. Captain Vrax approached, looking pleased with himself. Santos, I'm glad you recovered in time for today's demonstration. You've become something of a celebrity among my superiors. Happy to entertain, Leo replied dryly. Vrax smiled thinly. Today's demonstration will showcase the military applications of targeted gravitational manipulation. You should be honored. Your exceptional performance has advanced our research significantly. What exactly am I demonstrating today, Captain? The terminal threshold of human endurance. Of course. Vrax gestured to the platform. And the effectiveness of gravitational fields as a non-destructive method of neutralizing enemy combatants. Non-destructive. The euphemism might have been amusing if Leo hadn't seen the broken bodies of previous test subjects. As he was led to the platform, Leo scanned the chamber. Lyra stood among the medical personnel at the ready, her expression professionally blank. Near one of the main generator housings, Tash worked at a control panel, ostensibly making final calibrations. The platform locked Leo's boots in place with magnetic restraints, not to prevent escape, but to keep him upright when his body would otherwise collapse. Above him, specialized gravity emitters aligned themselves, capable of creating a precise column of intensified gravitational force. Ladies and gentlemen, Vrax addressed the audience. Today, we demonstrate the culmination of Project Anvil, precision gravitational weaponry. Unlike conventional weapons, gravity leaves no radiation, no chemical residue, and no collateral structural damage. The perfect solution for urban pacification and fortress reduction. Leo felt the familiar sensation of increasing pressure as the demonstration began. The gravity climbed steadily, 2.5 g, 3 g, 3.5 g. His body, still not fully recovered from the previous test, protested immediately. As you can see, Vrax continued, the subject remains conscious and standing at forces that would immediately incapacitate most species. This allows for calibration of the field to specific biological thresholds. For Dre, Leo's vision began to blur. He focused on his breathing, on staying conscious despite the crushing weight pressing down on every cell of his body. Now, observe the precision targeting capabilities. The pressure suddenly intensified on Leo's left side while decreasing slightly on his right. The uneven force twisted his body painfully against the magnetic restraints. By manipulating the gravitational gradient, we can induce specific physiological responses, unconsciousness, immobility, or even targeted organ failure. 4.5 Grau. Leo felt something crack in his chest, a rib giving way under the pressure. Blood filled his mouth again as capillaries ruptured. The resonator beneath his skin vibrated faintly, working to create its protective field. But the forces involved were overwhelming its capacity. Through the haze of pain, Leo saw Tash moving closer to the main control junction, his movements casual but purposeful. Lyra had positioned herself near an emergency exit, her hand resting on what appeared to be a medical kit, but what Leo suspected contained something else entirely. It was time. Impressive as human endurance is, Vrax was saying. Every species has its breaking point. We will now demonstrate the terminal threshold, the gravitational force at which biological systems catastrophically fail. The pressure increased again. 5G. Leo's consciousness began to fade, darkness encroaching from all sides. With tremendous effort, he managed to move his right hand to his left forearm, finding the resonator beneath his skin. 3 sharp taps, then sustained pressure. For a moment, nothing happened. The crushing weight continued to increase, 5.5 G now, and Leo felt his body beginning to surrender to the impossible force. Then he felt it. A subtle shift in the gravitational field around him, like ripples in a pond. The resonator warmed beneath his skin, pulsing with energy as it synchronized with the generator frequency. Vrax frowned at his control panel, tapping commands with increasing urgency. "Something's wrong with the calibration," he muttered. Then, louder, "Technical support to the main console." Tash was already there, his cybernetic hand moving across the controls. "Gravitational feedback detected. Captain, the field is becoming unstable." "That's impossible," Vrax snapped. "Stabilize it immediately." But the resonance was building. Leo felt the gravity around him fluctuating wildly, crushing one moment, almost weightless the next. The magnetic restraints on his boots short-circuited, releasing him. He collapsed to the platform, using the moment of reduced gravity to roll onto his side. His alarms blared throughout the chamber. The audience of officials and officers began to evacuate, their orderly departure quickly descending into panic as the gravitational disturbances spread beyond the central platform. "What's happening?" demanded a senior consortium official, clutching a chair as the gravity around him intensified, then abruptly reversed, sending him floating toward the ceiling. "Gravitational resonance cascade," Tash announced, his voice carrying artificial calm. "The system is generating harmonic feedback loops. I recommend immediate facility evacuation." Vrax stared at the technician, sudden understanding dawning on his face. You did this deliberately." Before Vrax could act on his realization, a violent gravitational wave rippled through the chamber. Equipment tore free from moorings, and structural supports groaned under impossible stresses. The observation windows cracked, then shattered inward. Leo felt himself lifted and slammed back down as the gravity shifted. The resonator burned against his skin now, fighting to maintain a bubble of stability around him. He caught sight of Lyra activating something in her medical kit. Emergency beacon lights flashed along the floor, guiding prisoners and personnel toward evacuation routes. "Override!" Vrax shouted, pushing Tash aside to access the main controls. "Emergency shutdown. Authorization Vrax Alpha 9. The system responded with a cascade of error messages. On the main display, a schematic of the facility showed gravitational anomalies spreading outward from the death ring, disrupting power systems and structural integrity throughout the complex. "It's too late," Tash said calmly. "The resonance pattern has been established. The system will continue to amplify it until catastrophic failure." The ceiling began to collapse as support beams buckled under alternating gravitational stresses. Leo forced himself to his feet during a moment of reduced gravity, stumbling toward Lyra and the emergency exit. A section of equipment housing tore free above racks. The captain looked up just in time to see several tons of machinery suspended in momentary weightlessness, before the gravity reversed again, sending it crashing down. Leo didn't witness what happened next. Lyra grabbed his arm, pulling him through the emergency exit as the death ring chamber began to disintegrate behind them. "The resonator worked better than we calculated," she shouted over the alarms. "The feedback loop is affecting all the interconnected gravity systems." They stumbled down corridors where personnel and prisoners alike fought against unpredictable gravitational shifts. In some sections, people floated helplessly. In others, they crawled along the floor, crushed by double or triple the normal force. "The escape pods," Tash called, joining them from a side passage. "We've got maybe 5 minutes before the power core destabilizes." Together, they navigated the chaotic facility, helping others where possible. Many of the guards had abandoned their posts, focusing on their own survival as the consortium's prized research station tore itself apart. They reached the evacuation bay to find several pods already launched. Tash overrode the security on one of the remaining vessels, ushering Leo and Lyra inside, along with a group of former test subjects. What about you? Leo asked, as Tash remained at the control panel. Someone needs to make sure the data reaches the Galactic Council, the technician replied. Evidence of what they were really doing here. He tapped his cybernetic temple. It's all in here. I'll take another pod. The escape pod launched, accelerating away from the doomed facility. Through the viewport, Leo watched as gravitational distortions became visible in the atmosphere around the complex, swirling vortices of dust and debris marking areas of intense gravitational fluctuation. Then, with a silent flash that quickly expanded into a roiling cloud, the facility's power cord detonated. The shockwave rocked their escape pod, sending it tumbling momentarily before the stabilizers compensated. Do you think Tash made it out? Lyra asked quietly. Leo didn't answer immediately. The chances were slim, but the technician had survived against the odds before. If anyone could, it would be him. 3 days later, aboard a Galactic Council relief vessel, Leo stood at a viewport, watching the approach to the nearest starbase. His body was still recovering. The medical team had documented an unprecedented collection of gravity-related injuries, but he was alive. Lyra joined him, data tablet in hand. The Council received Tash's transmission, she said. Complete records of Project Anvil, including Vrax's reports to Consortium High Command. They're opening a formal investigation. And Tash? She smiled. His pod was picked up by a mining vessel. He's already testifying before the Council Security Committee. Leo nodded, relief washing over him. Against all odds, they'd succeeded, not just in escaping, but in exposing the Consortium's illegal weapons program. What happens now? He asked. The Council has offered amnesty and relocation to all survivors, Lyra replied. But for some of us, there's another option. She handed him the data tablet. They're forming a specialized task force to investigate other potential Consortium black sites. They need people who understand what to look for. Leo scanned the document. An official council commission offering positions to him, Lyra, and Tash as consultants on gravitational weapons research and prevention. I'm not exactly the consultant type, he said with a faint smile. I was planning to rejoin my mercenary unit once I could stand in normal gravity without passing out. You survived what should have been unsurvivable, Lyra pointed out. And you helped expose a weapons program that could have killed millions. I'd say that qualifies you for a career change. Leo looked back toward the stars. His old life as a mercenary seemed distant now, separated by an experience that had fundamentally changed him. He'd gone into Vortis 7 focused solely on survival, his own, at any cost. He'd emerged with something more. I'll think about it, he promised. And he would. But first, he had some unfinished business with gravity to attend to. 6 months later, in a specially designed training facility on Ceres Station, Leo stood before a class of Galactic Council security forces, Lyra and Tash at his side. Behind them, a holographic display showed the gravitational manipulation techniques they'd developed based on the resonator technology. Gravitational warfare is unlike any conventional threat, Leo explained to the assembled officers. It doesn't just attack the body, it turns physics itself against you. But physics, like any weapon, can be countered if you understand it. He activated the training room's gravity generators, gradually increasing the force until the officers felt the familiar weight of 2G pressing down on them. Today, we'll teach you to survive what no one is supposed to survive, he continued, watching as the trainees adjusted their stances using the techniques he'd taught them. Because the next time someone tries to use gravity as a weapon, they'll discover what the Consortium learned the hard way. He met Lyra's gaze, seeing in her eyes the same determination that had carried them through their escape. When they double the gravity to crush you, Leo told the class, you'll be ready to ask for triple.